Konnichiwa.
Welcome to the Jandals in Japan podcast.
Kia ora, Catherine.
Konnichiwa, Jane.
Yeah, here we are again. Since we recorded last time, there has been a major cyclone happen in New Zealand. Our thoughts are with all of our friends and family in New Zealand who are affected by this.
Oh,
Really
my goodness,
shocking
right?
images coming through now
Yes,
about what has happened. It's just
yes.
unbelievable, isn't it?
And incredible stories too of people being so brave in the water,
Mm,
flooding, and people who couldn't swim, who swam in order to get help to get their family rescued. All kinds of stories are
mm.
coming out too. And I just feel a little helpless sometimes when
Yes.
you're so far away in Japan, you think, what can we do? That got us thinking a little bit about Japan and from Japan, what we could do to help New Zealand. And we were approached by one of our fantastic Jandals, Adam Hall, who is on one of our episodes. He imports a beautiful Poatu New Zealand Manuka honey to Japan, and he had a brilliant idea.
His amazing idea was to bring New Zealand brands in Japan together to create a bundle where the proceeds from this bundle go to the Cyclone Relief Fund. We're very excited to know about this, and we will bring you more information about this as soon as we hear the final details. It's being created as we speak and will go on sale from the 1st of March. So we hear. And so if you're in Japan, please buy one of these bundles if that's somehow you can support. We also have some other events potentially coming as well that we've heard about as well, haven't we, Catherine?
Exactly. So we're thinking about convening some event that gets everyone together to also support, and we're going to be working on that, the details on that, and announcing that shortly.
Yeah. Oh, I think I need to take a breath.
And on
Yeah.
to one other topic I think we
Yeah.
should
I
bring
don't know
up.
how we segue out of that into something else. So let's just do it. Rip the Band-Aid
Well,
off.
yeah. We just want to say again, thank you so much to the guys at Japan Rugby Weekly.
Yes.
They are the best. They are the best. We did a little pitch for them on their podcast. It comes out every Wednesday night. And we loved being on that. But when they shared us and our story on their podcast,
Mm.
wow,
It was a
we
good
were
time.
blown
What a laugh.
away.
Yeah.
Thank
Such a
you,
good laugh.
guys.
Thank you very much for your kind words about our wonderful podcast. And we really enjoy working with you guys. You're such a good bunch of chaps. And just the whole rugby thing, like I've never really been
Mm.
much interested in rugby in Japan until the last year or so. It's sort of come onto my radar. And I've just been really
How's that, Jane? Why is that?
yeah,
Did
it could be
anyone
because of this
influence you there?
podcast and being hanging out with Catherine, but and getting to know a particular team and some of the members and all of that as well. That's happened in the last year.
Yeah.
But isn't it interesting how Japan
Yeah.
rugby is just being catapulted into the sort of spotlight
Sure
in the
is.
world now?
Sure
And
is.
why would that be, do you think? Like certain players signing contracts with certain teams recently. We've seen Bowden Barrett and Aaron Smith signing.
Yeah, there's lots of things going on. It's amazing. And of
It's
course,
amazing.
the Brave
So
Blossoms are also coached by a fantastic New Zealander. So,
amazing.
right? So I think it's getting around. But
And
you told me
also,
something I didn't know, and that was that they're doing some teaching or training of rugby in schools here. Tell me a bit more about
well,
that.
yeah. So recently, my fifth grade daughter came home from school and she said, I scored a try today at school. I'm like, what? And she said, oh, we're playing tag rugby in PE. And I was really surprised. This is the first time I've heard of it. So maybe for fifth grade onwards. So that's sort of like 11-year-olds upwards in primary school here are being taught tag rugby. And so quite often she'll come home and say, oh, I scored 2 tries today, or I scored, another try today. Or so-and-so stood on my hand when I was trying to score a try.
Hopefully, no spikes on their shoes. God.
No, luckily not. But yeah, it's very, very interesting to hear that
Yeah, that
this
is.
starting at grassroots of
Yep.
primary school students
That's
in Japan.
interesting.
I don't know if it's every school in Japan, but it could be, considering that
Mm.
it must be part of a curriculum now. So very,
Yeah,
very interesting what's going on here. I
interesting,
see
isn't
the
it?
reverberation from that in another 5 to 10 years
And
time.
we know that our friends at Rugby School Japan, they're coming in here and setting up a school that's based on rugby
Yes.
values, right? That's a really brilliant thing. You can just see it bubbling up and going to be an amazing thing. I mean, Japan did such a great job at 2019, right, with the Rugby World Cup, and then of course we had the aftermath of the COVID, and that sort of ruined things quite a lot. But I think the rugby spirit has continued, and we've got the base there. People who remember Japan want to come back and play rugby here.
Beautiful, wholesome rugby spirit here. So that's what I really like as well. It's very wholesome, and like I think we mentioned about just this lone woman going to watch a rugby game, all dressed in her Blossoms, Japan, Blossoms uniform, sitting there by herself, thoroughly enjoying the rugby game. You wouldn't see that in New Zealand, and so I just thought that was fantastic, right? It's really special.
You shared Whittaker's chocolate with her.
That's right. Yeah, right.
It reminds me of being at school, and we had rugby introduced, all girls school, and it lasted a week because too many people got damaged and broken and bruised, and so they cancelled rugby after 1 week. That was a shame.
You were playing real rugby, not touch or tag,
real rugby. So it was too violent. So they cancelled it. So I'm a bit jealous of your daughter. I think tag would have been a good idea.
Yeah, it's just tag. I said, we never used to play tag. I mean, I used to play touch rugby. And she's like, what's that? And I'm like, well, you actually have to touch people, and you probably, that's not a thing anymore. But
we'll
anyway.
Get her in a team soon. We'll get her in a local team, and then get her into the Brave Blossoms later on, the women's version, right? Yeah. Speaking of which is not speaking of which, but often with rugby is associated going and having social events after eating and drinking, and that's where I think our next guest, who's coming up in the show, is a super person to think about when you're talking about eating and drinking in Tokyo, and that is Wayne Shennen.
Yes,
he is the owner and proprietor and chief sommelier, etc., of Rangitoto Tokyo. Rangitoto Tokyo.
It takes a bit to be able to say that, Rangitoto Tokyo.
He came to Japan to do martial arts, and like a lot of our Jandals, just there it goes from the very first interest to actually establishing roots in Japan and doing something amazing. He's a sake specialist as well, Nihonshu, and we get a lot of information from him in this episode, don't we, Jane?
Yes. He really just made it very simple to understand. If you listen to this, you will be able to go out and confidently order sake for whatever it is you're having, or or even in the supermarket, go and choose something off the shelf. I feel like I've got immense confidence to order some sake now compared to before we spoke to Wayne. So yes, that's just one of the many gems inside this episode.
Exactly. It's no surprise why he's been in publications like Demystifying Sake and The Sake Alchemist, because that's what he is.
Yeah.
Can't wait to
and not only sake, but wine. Yeah, so as well. So, sorry. Go ahead, Catherine.
So we can't wait to bring you this episode. But Jane, you usually do the intros to the episode. So go
well,
ahead.
That's okay. You can do this one. All right, let's hear it from Wayne.
Wayne.
Kia ora, Wayne. Welcome to the Jandals in Japan podcast. Great to have you on the show today.
Great to be here. I'm not usually up this early, so I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, a bit of a night owl in your line of work, I'm sure. We like to start with a warm-up question.
Yes.
So our warm-up question today is, someone has put the sake list in front of you at a restaurant or izakaya. How can we figure out what to select? Give us a rough guide on how to select and impress our friends if we know nothing about sake.
Okay, I'd say that if they're going to be impressed by price, just get the expensive one. But if they're going to be impressed by your knowledge, generally look at there should be a percentage, or hopefully there's a percentage written down there. It'll be sort of maybe 50% or 70%. It's not alcohol. That's how much of the rice has been polished. And it's a good way to work out if the higher that number, the more robust the sake. So if you're starting off, maybe go for something with a lower number, and if you're finishing or in the middle of the meal, maybe something with a higher number like 65. The important thing as well is if you order with confidence, it's very hard to mess up a sake match. So, so, so
Nice.
if you wanted to look good, just say, oh, I love this one, and you're probably gonna be right.
And everyone will go, oh, excellent. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's really good. I love that. So look at the percentages of the polished, that it will show you of the
polishing rate.
polished rice.
Yeah, yeah.
So low is how much?
So really low is sort of like 35%,
Mm-hmm.
and that means that 65% of the outside of each individual grain has been taken away. When you're looking at the lower grades, which is not a good translation to English, to be honest, 70%, which means 30% has been taken away. And what that kind of means is if you think of a grain of rice, the outside of it is all husk and bran and things like that. So the less the polish, the more of that brown rice character coming through.
Yes, yes, that would totally influence the character, I can imagine.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
so the lower that number, which means more has been polished away, the more maybe elegant the sake is going to be, and if you need something more robust. But it's important to know and understand, I guess, that if you like elegant things, then the sake is going to be more, I guess, expensive because they had to polish more away. But if you like punchier flavors, then the sake is going to be cheaper because they had to polish less away to make those
Okay.
ones. So
That doesn't
more
necessarily mean it's going to give you more of a headache if it's cheaper or something.
no. It's often in the sake world, and this is a lovely thing. It's a shame it doesn't translate to other things, but the cheaper stuff is probably the stuff that's the better one for you at that time.
There you go. You heard it here on Jandals in Japan. I feel like I've had an education in sake already. What about you, Catherine?
Oh, good. I am madly, if you didn't even notice that on camera, writing notes. And I'm going to convert this and put it on my iPhone notes. Brilliant, Wayne. That is the best I've ever heard it explained. I
Yeah.
didn't know any of that. And I know Jane's going to ask me what my favorite sake is. And I don't know much because I'm the one who holds that menu and goes, what do I do?
Yeah.
Wine, I've got a bit more of an inkling to know what to do. Sake, you've just told me everything I needed to know. Thank you, Wayne.
One thing I'd say is that people, when they started drinking, say, craft beer in New Zealand, they didn't know what a triple dry hopped IPA made with blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
insert all those sorts of things. They didn't know what any of that meant. So you had to experiment a little bit and then build your knowledge base. And for some reason, people are intimidated by sake to actually start experimenting. But if you see a word like ginjo on a menu and you taste it, and you like it, then look for that word on the next menu and then try and remember the brewery. And if you remember the brewery, then try something different from them, and you can just kind of grow from out from there. And then it's honestly, in the sake world, there's only about 8 words that you really need to kind of get your head around. And really, once you've got that, everything else should open up, and you basically just can go off and do your own drinking research.
Drinking
Very
research.
good. Yeah. Yeah. So I have a favorite sake brand. It's because it's the only sake brand I know, and that's Kubota in Niigata. Do you know? Is that a well-known brand or?
Yeah, absolutely, and justifiably so. Kubota is there's a sort of style of Niigata sake that's very crisp and clean, and Kubota is definitely one of the best at that. The good thing about them as well is you can find them in lots of places. Sometimes people misunderstand that if you see it in a lot of places, then it must be cheap or not very good. And it's like, no, sometimes it just means successful because of quality. And Kubota definitely is along those lines.
Yeah, so I came across that 20 years ago when I was looking for Valentine's Day present for my husband who doesn't eat sweets or chocolates, right? And so I went, and I knew he likes his sake, so I went to a alcohol store and I was like looking for something for my at that time boyfriend, and they're like, "Oh, Kubota manju,"
Yeah.
and they gave me the not manju. I can't, one of those, and so I was like, okay, great, thanks. And yeah, and recently I bought it again after like a 15-year kind of break, and I actually had some, and I was like, oh, this is really good. This is going down very easy. So very crisp, clean, delicious. Yeah, really recommend it.
I just got back from Australia. I was doing a contract with the Sake Makers Association, trying to sort of teach sommeliers and venue owners and things like that about sake and kind of help get things onto the right path. We consciously did these events at non-Japanese restaurants to prove the point that sake is not something that you should be matching with food, with Japanese food. You should just be matching it with food. And people would say things like, "Oh, well, but I'm not a Japanese restaurant." It's like, but you sell tequila, mate, and you're not a Mexican restaurant.
Yeah.
Like you're kind of pigeonholing it from a misunderstanding. And then everyone, when they left, they were like, "Oh my God, I got invited to a restaurant that wasn't Japanese, but the first taste was like, okay, that's why. It's really good with food."
Wow, that is so incredible. We could just wrap up the show now. We've had enough.
Thank you.
I have been wanting to ask you to do a little mini course on sake, so that some of us who are a little bit like me, who don't really know much but have learned a lot right now, could learn the basics. And just what you've said there, with it being something that you can match with anything. And I guess that's what we're trying to do with New Zealand wine and Japan as well. It goes with anything in Japan too. That would be amazing if you could do a little mini course. We come along and learn from you. You've obviously got everything that we need to know and are teaching the world, at least Australia, about sake. So goodness, put that thought in your mind.
Absolutely.
Let's try. Think about that.
Absolutely.
Jandals session. We could bring our Jandals along,
we'll
so we can get them all educated.
As you know, my life is likely to change very, very greatly in the next, hopefully not hour. But when things have settled down with the new kid on the way, I'll be very, very keen.
Yeah,
spread the sake love.
That would be lovely, and congratulations on that. Your first child about to be born.
Exciting time.
Cross Jandal getter, I think we've called them before. So
yeah.
And so thank you so much, Wayne, for coming on the show, and we will be putting your full bio, which is really enormous, into the show notes later. But tell us a little bit first up then about how you came to be in Japan, because I think you are from Tauranga originally.
I am,
yeah. So tell us how the Tauranga guy comes through to Japan. Tell us a story.
It's kind of funny, like growing up in Tauranga, which is just like a total paradise, but at the time didn't think so. Moved to Australia when I was 19. Give it maybe 20, I can't remember. It was a while ago now. And I started working for a telecommunications company. Ended up injuring myself doing like computer work, so I wasn't able to do the project management stuff I'd been doing. And then after 2 years being out of work, ended up working in a dodgy bar over in Manly. It was quite famous for violence and late night. It was interesting. It was an interesting introduction to the world of hospitality, and I definitely, you sort of started off just pouring beers and talking, and that was fun, and then moved into working with cocktails, and then eventually ended up working at a Japanese restaurant called Sake. I actually started working there because I wanted to make cocktails with yuzu juice, because no one was actually doing it, and I discovered that when I'd been to Japan, because I've been coming to Japan since 2002 to do the martial art that I do. I've got a lot of empathy when people say, "Oh, I don't like sake." It's like, well, if you like alcohol, you do like sake. You're just like I was, though. You just had bad sake. The best analogy I can think of is that there are a lot of people who think they don't like Chardonnay because at a certain stage there was a unnamed country that might be across the Tasman from us in particular pumping out ridiculously average, mass-produced, unloved Chardonnay that made people think that that's what that stuff was. And some of the best Chardonnay that you get in the world without doubt comes from Australia, but that stuff that they were pumping out, kind of for a lot of people, and myself included, made me think I do not like Chardonnay. And then 20 years later I had a good one and realized I'd wasted 20 years of my life. And I'd lived in Japan doing the martial art, and I didn't drink sake because I'd had bad sake again back in Australia. And just
bit of a theme here.
Sorry, Australia.
Sorry.
I'm an Australian citizen. It might sound it's not them. It was the times.
It was definitely a time, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, West Coast callers and all that. So.
And ABC, right, was anything but Chardonnay. That was another
thing.
Yeah,
which is funny because Chardonnay is generally the main grape in Champagne. So you have someone who's drinking Champagne complaining about how bad Chardonnay is, and you sort of it's just a misunderstanding, and it's totally understandable.
Yeah.
Because if you have 10 bad Chardonnay, why would you have 11th? And I think that's been the problem with sake. And luckily, probably in the last 10 years, that's massively changed. You can get phenomenally good sake from a 7-Eleven now. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of my journey of how I got here. It was, I came over and wanted to train the martial arts, and looked around and no one was drinking New Zealand wine, and everyone should be drinking New Zealand wine. So let's try and open up a New Zealand wine bar.
What was the martial arts you were doing?
It's called Bujinkan. It's a kind of old school.
Are you still doing it?
I'm actually going to do it again this afternoon.
Good on you.
So Corona obviously threw a spanner in multiple plans, but the dojo's just started up again, and I'm going to go and catch up with a friend from Norway who's allowed back in the country. So it's very exciting.
So looking up. Wow, awesome.
Great.
So you started your wine bar. Is that the first step in Japan?
I came back and forth many times, but yeah, basically, my wife and I decided that the Rugby World Cup would be a perfect time to open up a bar, take advantage of that, and then obviously the Olympics. What could possibly go wrong? Yeah, we've learned a lot about what could go wrong.
How did you find your location? Because you're in Yushima in Tokyo, and your bar is called Rangitoto Tokyo. Yes. Where did you find it, and why did you use that name?
The first question was, I sort of believe, like, people always talk about location, and I think if you look at all of the best places, and we don't want to compete on price, and we don't want to compete on volume. I worked out fairly early in my hospitality career that really intoxicated customers aren't that much fun. We're trying to build something that's going to be there for a long time. And if you look at some of the best restaurants and places around the world, they're not that easy to get to. So I wasn't that worried about the location, because I figured that there weren't that many people that were doing what we were doing in a city of 36 million people. So if we can get in front of the right people, then the location itself will hopefully not be too much of a burden, because where we are is a little bit in the middle of nowhere. There's not a lot of foot traffic, but we're sort of getting through that. So we kind of just found a place that we thought, okay, we like this, we can work with this, we can afford this. But the intention has always been to move once we've got ourselves sorted out. So we've got our processes in place, and now it's time to move to a place where there is more foot traffic.
Ooh, exciting. Exciting.
Work in progress.
Yes, I loved how you said the best places are not easy to get to, just like New Zealand, right?
Yeah.
So you've picked the perfect place that's worked so far for you, and at the timing of Rugby World Cup it must have been great, but during those last 3 or 4 years it's been quite hard for you too, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, what can you do, eh? Like, there's no point wallowing. We took the opportunity to try and find some staff and look at strategy and all those sorts of things, and being a restaurant that specializes in New Zealand wine, told you can't really sell alcohol, that just meant we were open for lunch and then went off and did other things. So it was, not ideal, but we've come out of it, I think, with a greater understanding of what we're trying to achieve. And we found, without doubt, one of the best chefs that you could find. He's worked in multiple Michelin stars. His level is insane. So we can't really complain about how things have played out. That's for sure.
That's really great to hear. I mean, a lot of businesses did not survive the COVID thing. It's really sad. So yeah, that's fantastic that things are looking up, right? In all,
definitely.
all ways. Yeah.
We heard also that you're now also importing wine.
Yeah.
Is that from New Zealand?
It is, yeah. So our friend Nigel Elder, he was actually on Country Calendar not so long ago, which has been geo-barred, so I haven't been able to see it yet. But he's been in touch with us, and our plan was always to specialize in things made by people who we know and love. So the brand is called The Elder. They're down in Martinborough Terrace. Nigel's just a really interesting guy. He's worked in Burgundy, and he's got all sorts of global connections with the level of what he's trying to do. But yeah, it's really, really high quality stuff. He doesn't sell it until it's ready to drink, those sorts of things. So hopefully from there we can start building, bringing in other more interesting ones as well.
Right, so you're focusing on The Elder as the brand that you're bringing in because of this connection with Nigel. Yeah. Wow, that's great. It starts from there. And I don't even know how you got to do that, because there's such a lot involved, isn't there, to bring wine into the country?
Yes and no. And this is one of the things that people need to understand when they're doing business in Japan, is that when you're doing your immigration stuff, all of those sorts of things, is that if the paperwork says this is what you need, that's what you need. There's no gray area. There's no sort of flexibility. And once you've got all of that stuff, it seems to me from my experience that the people in the office, they just want to stamp it and for you to leave. Like they don't want you to come back. They don't want to be dealing with this.
Spot on. Yeah.
And so luckily with Makia, my wife, she's really good at those sorts of things. So she's pretty much done that whole project from start to finish. I've sort of got involved every once in a while to talk with Nigel and stuff like that. But I mean, she's the one who's gone to the tax agents and taken care of it. And she was a heavily pregnant lady, counting bottles at the port, all of those sorts of things. So full credit to her for what she's pulled off there, and it's exciting. Bringing over Nigel's wines, it's like just such an amazing place to start because his wines are absolutely phenomenal. We can grow out from there and sort of bring in some other friends who are making things and always going for quality over quantity is the plan.
Are they going to be available online?
Yes, absolutely. And we'll try and work out some sort of Jandals in Japan kind of tie up. Definitely.
Yay. Thank you.
But yeah, like as I've sort of mentioned, life's a little bit interesting at the moment, so we've got a few changes we're going through, and then once we've done that, we'll definitely set it up because the plan is I mean, New Zealand wine is so underrepresented in this country. And this country is a massive wine drinking country, so if we can, and the goal is for us to be spreading the love from Okinawa to Hokkaido, right? If we get some Instagrams of people drinking rosé from New Zealand down in Ishigaki or something like that, then I think we've done our job.
Rosé, that is something I have not been seeing, and I've started to see it last month on the shelves because it's pink, right? And I'm like, people are going for the pink with the sakuras coming.
Yeah.
Is this the chance for rosé? Are we gonna start seeing rosé here in Japan? What do you think?
It's so insane. I am a certified sommelier, and I would say, for my personal recommendation, that rosé is probably the best match with Japanese food in general. But there's this insane misunderstanding that because it's pink, it's sweet. Yeah. And I mean, for me, the question is like, I've got a blue shirt and I've got a pink shirt. Which one of these shirts is sweeter? The question itself makes no sense. Pink is a color. It's not a taste. And dry rosé is just, it absolutely kicked off around the world except Japan. And I think you're right. It's coming on because of the cherry blossom viewing, when it should be on because it's an amazing match with tempura, or insert multiple other Japanese dishes. But
I can see how the pink would be like. People are thinking this is gonna taste like strawberries or sakura or something sweet. Whereas it would be hard for people to get their head around that it is actually can be very dry and not sweet.
Yeah.
One of my mind-blowing rosé examples was going to London and on a Friday night seeing London guys outside a bar drinking rosé like it was going out of fashion. And it was Provence. It was dry. I started drinking it then as my drink of the time I was in London because of that. And I thought that's interesting. It's not a pink drink for women or for the season. It is because it's a great wine to drink.
It's hard to think of a better match with tempura, I think, from a wine point of view. It's also harder to think of a better match to drink with Test cricket or something like that, right? It doesn't need food, but it works well with food. And if it's dry, it's not going to end up cloying. And I think that's the thing. It's kind of good to be able to see, go back to New Zealand and you see all of these big manly men drinking rosé, and it's like, oh, good on you, mate. Like, good on you.
Yes.
Yeah, awesome.
That's right.
Can I ask you, sukiyaki, what would you drink?
Oh, that's a good one.
That's a tricky one, right?
That's common in the Nakata household, isn't it?
Next is gyoza. After that, what would you drink?
Well, I mean,
that was last night dinner.
One thing, and it's going to sound suspicious coming from me, is that I mean, Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc is actually ridiculously good with almost everything. It's probably starting to lose it more towards the steaks, but it is again really, really good. Sukiyaki, I would possibly drift towards a Pinot Noir, But I think also, like, honestly, a rosé, maybe not super chilled, but closer to room temperature, a rosé is probably going to do the trick.
Nice, interesting. I am going on a mission to see if I can get my husband to drink rosé because I think, because like I said, he hates sweet things, and he would look at that pink and go,
Mm.
I wonder if I can get him to drink it because he does like a Sauvignon Blanc. But yeah,
Let's
Yeah.
get a Wayne
interesting.
recommendation around
Yeah,
that so you can
yeah,
persuade
very
your
good.
husband by the end of the year. My goodness.
Interesting. Thank you for that. Yeah,
Serve it to him in a black cup
Yeah.
so he can't see what the color is.
black
It's,
cup.
yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, blind taste test. Yes, I
Yeah.
like it. Yeah.
Is there something in this X factor of being a Kiwi that's helped you, do you think, in your journey here? I'm hearing a little bit of, during these last few years, you keep going and gumbaruing, right? And not letting things get you down. Is there something that you think is quintessentially Kiwi, or is it just the way it is with you and the way you approach your life and work in Japan that's kept you going?
Yes, because I think it is partially because of how my journey, I hate using that word, has kind of played out. But I think that was only possible because of coming from New Zealand. Like, we grow up in a country where we're always looking out. I think the natural progression for a North Islander, a South Islander seems to move to the North Island and then maybe away. A North Islander maybe to Australia or maybe to London, but we're always sort of looking out. And I've lived in multiple countries, including Brazil and England, and a lot of time in Australia. But doing the Japanese martial arts, I think, is probably part of just dealing with the situation as opposed to just dreaming that it had played out in a different way. And I think that was a sort of like when Corona happened, it was sort of like, okay, well, that's that. There's no reason to panic. There's no reason to do anything else. Did we believe in our original situation? Our original plan, and can we still play it out? But I think, yeah, the combination, and this is kind of what I've always wanted to do. I think if you take the best of New Zealand and the best of Japan, you've got a pretty awesome country. And if we can manage to kind of tie those things together, then hopefully we can kind of help both countries, if that makes sense. Because how many times have you seen a Japanese person and you think, oh, you really need to go for a walk in the forest back home or something like that, like go and chill out on Waiheke or something. And how many times in New Zealand where you sort of think, you don't realize how big this world is.
Sorry, I've got the rubbish truck here, so I've just muted myself, picking up the Monday rubbish. It'll be back again tomorrow. So can you tell us a story about where you were tripped up along the way? This sounds like you've overcome obstacles. What has been something that's really tripped you up that you weren't expecting in this, as you the word you don't like, journey, and to where you are now?
We have probably had more difficulty finding staff than I expected. And that in itself has been quite painful, because it's hard to strategize when you're stopping halfway through everything you're doing to make someone a flat white. But I think that's probably the biggest thing, because the average Japanese staff member is not particularly proactive when it comes to hospitality. And I saw this when I was working in Auckland, but I had enough people around me that would bring them out of their Japanese mindset into a more Kiwi kind of mindset. And so I've been looking for staff members who have the Japaneseness, but have lived overseas for long enough that they've sort of picked up the ability to talk to a stranger and make recommendations without feeling like they're being rude or all of those sorts of things. And so probably that has been the hardest thing, is trying to find staff. But even that has just been, I guess, another opportunity to refine my approach when I'm talking to customers as well. And again, also being non-Japanese allows us to get away with all sorts of cultural faux pas, because I don't think anyone's really expecting me to be Japanese, and that's part of the reason why they went to a non-Japanese place in the first place. But yeah, I think probably finding the staff is maybe been the most difficult, and the sort of biggest sort of trip up, because I thought it would be a little bit more like we'll find right people and we'll train them up, and yeah,
And then it'll be fine. But no, the
yeah,
sort of cultural thing going on in the background as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We've actually ended up facilitating a couple of young. We got in touch with the Polytechnic in Tauranga and asked if there were any young chefs who were keen to move to Japan, and they after a few months that have gone by, they actually started working with us last week. So we've imported young Kiwis who've gone from having never been to Auckland before to living in the biggest city in the world.
Wow.
And finishing Polytech, working with someone who has the same mentor as Marco Pierre White and Gordon Ramsay. So yeah, it's a bit of a jump for them, but they seem to be enjoying it.
Fantastic.
Exciting
Oh my goodness,
times.
what a wonderful thing to have set up with your hometown to
Yeah, I want to make
That's
it a regular.
beautiful. It's going back to what you just said about bringing the best parts of the two countries together. How fantastic.
But can you imagine that, going from like a town of 7,000 people in Eastern Bay of Plenty
and
to
getting that
Yeah.
opportunity. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, they
what
both
an
begin with T,
opportunity.
but completely different. Amazing. So they can finish their degree or their course by doing the practical stuff with you. Is that what they do?
No, they've actually
They
just finished
finished?
it, so they've got their certification.
Fantastic.
And I was sort of like, look, is there anyone who's planning to do a working holiday visa? We've got someone here who wants to teach. We've got a position, and we're not entirely sure how it's going to play out. But if you come into Japan anyway, it's better to have somewhere to start than to just get off the plane and sort of walk around and start handing out CVs. But hopefully down the line we can formalize it and actually turn it into a bit of a program, because I think it is. And I'm not going to lie, I'm doing this from purely selfish reasons, because when I go back to Tauranga, I want these guys to have opened up a restaurant that I want to go to.
Yeah, in the future, that would be awesome. Oh, I love that. That's such a great idea to give opportunities to New Zealanders to, yeah, get out there and see the world and take back those skills to
Yeah.
New Zealand, hopefully. Yeah, fantastic.
So innovative. I think that's part of it, isn't it? Is that you're not stopping. You keep going and thinking of other ways to bring the two countries together. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, and this is where I can complain about Corona, but again, our location is not central, which meant we weren't paying the kind of brutal rents that we would have been paying. So when the government gave a subsidy, it was actually enough for us to kind of do what we did. And yeah, but really it was just the time. You sort of sit there and go, what should we do? Like, so we came up with some ideas and ran with them.
After all of this, Wayne, what's your one big nugget, your real gem of advice from your own experience that you would like to offer up for budding Kiwis coming into Japan, or who are here already but could go that next level that you're obviously showing? Your one go-to.
No, I was going to say networking, but obviously everybody says that. But I think that seems to be a strange thing. When I'm listening to certain clubhouse rooms or things like that, people talking about how they're always talking about the Japanese market as if it's somehow different. And anywhere in the world, networking is important. People who you know, it's important, right? So like to point out networking as a specific thing that's important to Japan, I don't understand. Japanese people have reasons for doing what they're doing from a cultural background, and I think when you've got a Kiwi who comes over here, one of these young guys said it the other day. They said, "Oh, they've got a lot of weird ways of doing this," and it was like, "Well, there's 126 million of them, and there's 5 million of us. Who's the weirdo?" It's like the more that we understand the cultural potential reasons that the things play out, the easier it's going to be. This idea of the Japanese market, I think, if you're coming in to try and sell something, in itself is a little bit strange, because again, you've got 36 million people in Greater Tokyo. Are you talking about the people in Ginza? Are you talking about the people in Ikebukuro? Are you talking about the people in Ueno? Because they are all very, very different. And each of these groups need to be, if you're trying to sell them something, they need to be treated appropriately. And someone said to me the other day that one of the wines that I'd like to sell is too expensive for the Japanese market because it's more expensive than champagne. And my answer was, is it better than champagne or is it worse than champagne? Because if it's better, then
someone will buy it. Yeah.
It's like then
not
the
all
question.
champagnes are made the same either.
Exactly. It's like, is it more expensive than bad champagne? Is it like the whole, and that in itself highlights the work that we need to do if we're trying to get to the right demographics, is who do you need to educate? And if you've got a salesperson who's selling these wines saying this, then obviously the work needs to be done from a fairly low level to build it up. But I'll throw some figures at you, and hopefully you can edit them out if they get boring. New Zealand, we've got a huge amount of soft power, and we should run with that. Japanese people really, really like New Zealand as a general rule, but they also know very little about us. So when they don't know how expensive something should be from Japan, from New Zealand, and this is a country, let's not forget, that will spend $200 on a single strawberry. So they just want to know a story as to why they should do it. And New Zealand, on an average, is the most expensive wine producing country in the world. But if you look at the premium stuff, we're extremely good value. And those numbers I was talking about, Wine Spectator in 2021 did a survey of the plus 90 point wines, and the plus 90 point wines that came from France were $111. I think Napa, California, and Italy, I think, were $93 per bottle, and New Zealand was $37.
What? $37?
$37. So you could get 3 bottles of 90 plus point wines, all one from France. And that's an objective view that as a retailer, I can tell people all day that New Zealand makes amazing wine, but it's like, don't trust me. I've obviously got an ulterior motive. Taste it, or trust these other people who don't have ulterior motives, and then having that objective number to fall back on, I think a lot of Japanese people enjoy. But sorry, I think I talked around that without saying one specific thing, but yeah, understanding that, I think that the Japanese market itself is probably an oversimplification. Find out who you're trying to target in that market, but also don't stress too much about how far you need to bow, or what you're doing with your business cards, because you'll just mess up with your own flow. Be a New Zealander. They're expecting it from you, and they're not expecting us to be Japanese, because we're not.
Yeah, make an effort, but yeah, don't worry too much about, I didn't reach 90 degrees and hold it for 3 seconds. And all of that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They people are expecting you to try. And I think that goes way further than going so far that you look like you're doing a parody.
Trying too hard.
Your one nugget is a sprinkling of gold in the pan, right? The gold pan there, like, don't treating people differently, because they are different, right? There's not one persona of Japanese person or
the
Japanese
Japan
market. I thought that
God.
was brilliant.
It's like read the room, right? If you're out of control in New Zealand, the signs are going to be pretty much the same wherever you are in the world. I guess, just watch, observe, and kind of recognize when you've gone too far and pull back a little bit, and don't go too far that you can still pull back.
I think about too, New Zealanders in Japan, we're not all the same New Zealander in Japan. The other day I was at a meeting and there were a bunch of people from Otago University who'd graduated around the same time, and here was like, Canterbury, but they included me, but they were like, wow, we're not Auckland. And so, and I have a lot of Auckland University friends who go, oh, you're from Canterbury. So even within, this sort of country that is vast, we still have a differentiation between New Zealanders. And what is that? For a Japanese person to understand those distinctions too would be an interesting thing to look at as well. But I love that you've talked about objective numbers, right? Have those facts and the story to back up what you're saying, and it sort of does blow your bias and gives real centered opinion from somewhere else, a third party, to what you're saying. It's great.
Because they don't know much about us, we can mold their expectations. And people in Japan seem to pay based on what they expect. I mean, you go to some fancy looking coffee shop and have an entirely average drink for 1,400 yen, and they're still busy. And everyone seems cool with it, but it's like, that was horrible, but no one wants to say it. And when they don't know about what New Zealand should be, and so, but they have a positive view of us, so we can mold that by just being confident and just saying, yeah, we do this and we do it well. You should enjoy it. And we're kind of lucky like that. We haven't been typecast yet.
Definitely, plenty of opportunities there. And so, what sort of trends are you seeing in Japan? Is speaking generally, trends that are, like, we've already spoken about rosé. Obviously, we'd love to see that becoming a trend. Anything else that you're noticing?
What I'm hoping to see, but it seems to be happening as well, is that people moving away from sort of mass produced and trying to move more into kind of craft. Like, I love that you can go to the supermarket and see a photo of the farmer. those sorts of things, I think Japan has been pretty slow on the uptake. But if you're trying to do something good for the environment and you can affect a market like New Zealand is not globally major significant if you're talking about things like free range and animal cruelty and all those sorts of things. If we can get Japan to start thinking about that, then you've got a much larger microphone. It's kind of getting those stories through. If Japan went free range with its eggs or something like that, that would be pretty major. But it seems that people are drifting in that direction, and I'm hoping that continues. This talking about healthy living, not just for the marketing aspect of it, but because of the fact that it's actually better for you, is, I think, great. One thing as well, there seems to be a trend for Scandinavian bakeries, and that's one I really hope continues to. Oh my God, I miss bread. The way that I expect it.
Not sweet bread, not sweet.
Yeah. The sort of bread that's going to catch fire in the toaster after 15 seconds. It's like, no, I want heavy bread.
Yeah.
But
they call it hard bread, don't they? It's like,
do they?
Katai pang is what they call it. It's
okay.
Like, it's brown.
Yeah. It's real bread. It's real bread. But yeah, we one of the dishes that we sell is made from Bostock's organic free range chicken, and it's way more expensive than the average Japanese person is expecting to pay for chicken. And I've had some feedback where people are like, wait a minute, is this turkey? And you're like, no, that's actually what chicken tastes like. This is real chicken. People will pay for it when they know that it's not just convenience store chicken. And I think that's an interesting proof of concept a little bit, is that people will pay when they know.
They understand the value of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that $200 strawberry is still stuck in my head, but I mean, like $100 rock melons and all of those sorts of things. Surely people can pay a little bit more for some ethically sourced things as well. But I believe it's happening, and I hope it continues.
So how could Kiwis leverage these trends that you're talking about? What could they do, perhaps in a unique and fresh way, to appeal to those trends you're talking about? Is there anything you can see there?
I think so, because it is New Zealand does everything well. I think we're lucky with the resources that we've got. We are a relatively expensive country in comparison, but there's a way of owning that too. Like, why is the New Zealand wine so expensive? It's because the people who made it have a living wage. You can be proud that these people enjoy their work and are not overworked. Unfortunately, you can't say that for everywhere. So you can kind of find a way of explaining the difference in price, potentially. But we do make amazing cheese. We do have free range pork products available, and that's just not part of a conversation that's happening over here. So if New Zealand can start or help to start that conversation, it can taste good and you can treat the animal well. It'll take a while to kind of punch through, and there'll always be some people who don't care, but there will be a huge amount of people that do care. They just don't know they care yet. Yeah, so starting that conversation with New Zealand does it ridiculously well. The kind of quality product that we just take for granted. We're so spoiled back home when it comes to the quality of produce that's available. Though I'm hearing that it's a bit expensive at the moment.
Yeah.
Terrible situation.
Sure is. I just been back there and felt exactly that. It was quite expensive, but I just love the array and the lack of plastic around everything. Hey, anything coming up for you, Wayne, that your activities or promotions you want to talk about? Are there any winemakers coming through? Tell us about something that might be coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to do something with the Alder. Obviously, because we're importing that. That one's coming up to be decided. But the next one that we've got locked in, I haven't started the advertising of the ticketing yet, but is for Pallisar Estate, which is also from Martinborough in Wairarapa. Sandy Moore's coming over from Pallisar, so it's going to be exciting to catch up with her again. It's a Saturday, April 1st, and we haven't locked in the menu yet, but honestly, Trevor in the kitchen is amazing, and the wine's amazing. So it's going to be a pretty amazing event for sure.
Like April 1st it's gonna be the place to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Get that on your
I
calendars.
remember back in my university days, Palliser Estate did a special, and I bought 2 cases of their wine.
What kind
Nice.
of university student were you, Catherine? Oh my God.
I was from Canterbury. We could do these things. And it was the wine that got me through. I was well known, and you can ask a couple of people who know me. That was the wine that I used to have on a Friday night. You come around, you knew you had Palliser Estate. It was
Nice.
crazy. And I remember going up there to actually into Martinborough and going there as well. So I may have met Sandy at the time, but it might have been another winemaker back then. But fantastic wine. So look forward to that. It's going to be fun.
Hopefully I've managed to convince her to bring some of her sparkling over, but we're going to have their Pinot Noir, and I think last year one of the writers, I can't remember who, it was in the top 2 first equal Pinot Noirs for New Zealand. So good Pinot Noir from New Zealand is basically just means the best Pinot Noir in the world, equal with. So I'm excited to test that wine again. Definitely.
Fantastic. Anything you wanted to ask us, Wayne?
Well, more probably of a congratulations. It's been going for a while, and you're sort of picking up traction and all that. And you won an award recently, right? Have you?
Oh, we were nominated in the top 3 for business podcasts in New Zealand. We got to the top 3. Yeah, we didn't quite make it to win, but we were in the top 5. Sorry.
Let's not.
I'm pretty sure we were 3rd though.
Yeah, we were 3rd, we think.
Yeah, in our minds
because,
anyway.
You know, when you're up against the shit show, which is the big one in New Zealand that wins all the awards, we feel that we were definitely 3.
And Radio New Zealand and all of those, yeah.
Yeah, well,
the Herald.
They've got some budget.
Yeah, the Herald, that's the one. Yeah.
But let's not forget that Jayne, who produces this podcast, is indeed an award winner who won the Entrepreneur of the Year at the British Chamber of Commerce Awards in 2022. So we are an award winner through the production and magic that goes on behind the scenes here, as well as on camera here for this podcast. Just saying. Thank you, Wayne, for bringing that up.
Yeah, nice one. That is pretty awesome.
Any last words from you?
If someone from New Zealand is thinking of coming over, that's a good idea. This market is massive and hungry. It needs to be treated in a Japan specific way, just the same way Brazil needs to be treated in a Brazil specific way. The market is massive, and people like us. So if you do come over, don't screw that up. But but
rule number 1, don't screw it up for other people. Thank you.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you very, very much. Congratulations on being a totally successful Jandal in Japan, and for telling us today about your story, your insights and tips. I'm so educated now. Thanks so much for being here from the land of the long white cloud and the land of the rising sun. Thanks, Wayne.
Awesome. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome interview with Wayne. Did we just get an education on sake or what? Like, I feel confident now to go and order something.
I am feeling good. I feel confident. I'm waiting for the time I can now get the menu in front of me and have a little look. Thank you, Wayne. You really just
awesome. Nailed it.
So easily explained. It makes complete sense.
Yeah.
I think I was looking at those percentages and absolutely not understanding.
I had no idea that's what it was. Like,
I thought it was like, as you get into spirits, they're 40% alcohol, or perhaps, right? And I thought, that's what that is, but completely blew me away that it was not what I thought. How long have I been here? How many sakes have I ordered?
The price isn't necessarily going to correlate to a headache the next day, right?
Hallelujah. What an education. I look forward to Wayne getting us set up for a mini class to build on.
I hope he does that. That'd be really awesome. Teacher. Yeah. He's a great way of explaining things and really easy to listen to. Loved it.
So easy.
I'm going to go and definitely spend some time looking around. Usually I just breeze right by the sake section in the booze shop or wherever I am looking at alcohol. I'm actually going to go and take some time to look at the labels and see what the patterns are, with these percentages and prices and
it's a good thing, isn't it? And I'm also interested to know how they're laid out, right? I haven't read. I've sort of just think sake.
You just see like a blur of labels that you can't read what it says because it's in that kanji that you can't.
Surely they're laid out like wine is in different sections. I mean, I probably could have asked Wayne that, but it'd be interesting to do some study.
Mm.
Practical study.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like sake is like retailing for crazy amounts in Europe. Like I remember seeing on TV recently that one glass of sake in a Paris restaurant would be like Jayne or something ridiculous, like over $100 for a glass of sake of a certain type. So
Mm.
definitely getting up there in the world, and we have it all right here, and we don't even drink it.
Yeah.
Something to learn there. Yeah, something.
Well, lots happening in his world. You know, the new baby on the way, but he's got the people coming in from, or the winemaker coming in from
Yeah.
Martinborough. He's also got that Tauranga association that he's created. What a fantastic idea. I think that's something that many Kiwis here listening could build on. And I'm thinking, Jayne, what can we do that's a little bit more like that community base that helps people come through? It's got me thinking.
That is such a great example. It doesn't have to be difficult. There's people, yeah, that you can team up with to, yeah, maybe bring in the talent you want from New Zealand, or, yeah, facilitate that, like help people get on the ground here. Very,
Wow.
very interesting.
And I always thought, you know, his place was too far to go to. It's too far away. But I had a complete bias. But now he's changed my view on that with that simple, best, you know, the best places are not easy to get to. And in fact, it's easy enough to get to. It's just further away than a 10-minute walk, which I quite like from where I am. But to get in a taxi and go to his restaurant is nothing, actually. And so I love that he said, you know, like New Zealand is too, it's hard to get to. And people go, oh, New Zealand should be closer. But we're quite glad that it's not, right? It is
It's worth
one of the best
trip.
places in the world to get to, and it's worth the trip. And I feel one of the big comments was that way of not just broad stroke brushing the whole of the Japanese market as one genre. There are so many different facets, right? Different colors of the rainbow of people here, tastes.
Even the Tokyo area.
size.
Tokyo.
Tokyo.
Like I used to think Tokyo was Ueno and Ikebukuro. That was what I thought Tokyo was for a long time, because I would come down from Fukushima on the train, get off at Ueno because that's where the train stopped, walk outside and go, oh, this is Tokyo. And I was not impressed, because Ueno is quite different from other areas of Tokyo, Roppongi or Shibuya or wherever. But the more time you spend in Tokyo, the more you see that, oh, there is more to Tokyo than just this one area where I happen to be.
So
right?
true. And they are quite different, and different personalities, different size wallets, different clothing, right?
Yeah.
So that was very interesting, and I think very good point to bring out, that don't just talk about Japan market, perhaps divide it up a little bit more and think about who you're actually selling to. I thought that was brilliant. And the story around it, right? Wayne also talked about that, being very careful on the story and having that objective, factual information to back up what you want to say, because you want to sell your product or your service here, of course.
Why is this valuable? Yeah. And
very, very interesting.
How competitive New Zealand wines actually are. Really? Like 30, what did he say? 30 something dollars for top class wine, as opposed to over 100 for a similar level wine from France. And I always say that to Japanese people here when I recommend New Zealand wine. They're like, oh, what should I have? Like, anything you're not going to miss. It's going to be good. It's not going to be a hazure. Hazure wa nai. There's no bad New Zealand wines here in Japan.
On the mark every single time. Hey, I loved how he also talked about bread. I mean, I'm not a big bread eater these days, but back in New Zealand, it was very, very tempting because the breads are so beautiful. So I think there's a real opportunity for a Kiwi baker to come on into at least Tokyo somewhere and do some New Zealand, maybe some more inspired breads here, and match up or help the Scandinavians and the others get
Scandinavian bakeries,
healthy bread, healthy bread,
sourdoughs and the harder crusted breads. I have a friend who's a baker. He's a Japanese baker, and his shop is a hard bread shop, and so it's known as being the shop that sells hard bread. And by hard, I mean just the crust is hard. And
the crust is hard. You just said it. Yay.
Or not so sweet bread, and that's the only bakery I will buy bread from.
But there are opportunities like that, aren't there? He's doing that.
He's the only shop in town.
The only one doing it.
In a whole city of 300,000 people.
Kudos to him. But, you know, again, Wayne talked about that moving from mass produced to craft, and that kind of bread making that you're talking about is a craft, and he's honed in on it. So there's plenty of opportunities, as Wayne has given in his crystal ball gazing, you know, healthy living. Thank you so much. It was fantastic. I loved it. Can't wait to get to the kitchen and see and meet Trevor and get a bit of that organic chicken.
Yeah, that
and a
sounds
few other
amazing,
things going
doesn't it?
down. It sounds fantastic. I might have to sign up for that wine dinner too.
All right. Well, we have more wonderful Jandals coming soon, so tune in next time. See you again.
Kia ora.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you check out our guests' links in the show notes.
This podcast is brought to you today by Catherine O'Connell Law and Pod Launch with Jayne. If you have a great story you think should be on the show, come and find us on LinkedIn or Instagram. We'd love to hear from you. See you next time.
Mata ne!